friends, to the finest inn in all of Bethlehem. Here you will find hearty and savory food to fill your bellies. You will find the softest of beds where you might rest your weary bones. And we have the sweetest of wine to warm your hearts, as well as to keep the chill of the night away. Oh, and it is most fortunate that you are here tonight, rather than last night. Oh, last night, every single bed in the inn was taken. And beyond that, every inch of ground here in the courtyard was covered. I thought we would never finish feeding and taking care of all of our guests, but finally we did. Put out the lamp, we closed the gate, and we retired for at least a few hours of sleep. And just as I was drifting off, I heard a banging at the gate. Who would come at such a late hour? And so I got out of bed, I took my lamp, and I went to the gate, and there I found a couple. They said they had been traveling all the way from Nazareth. They looked very tired. And the woman, scarcely more than a child herself, was obviously heavy with child. But what could I do? There was no room. And so I told them they would have to find someplace else. And all of a sudden my wife was at my side. And she said, might they stay in the stable? At least they would be out of the cold night air, and they could use some of the hay to make a bed. And I thought, well, that's possible. And I asked them if they would find that acceptable, and they said yes. And so I started to direct them to the stable, and again, my wife was at my side. And now she had an armload of blankets and a lamp. And she said, don't just show them, take them there. Make sure that they're settled in and they're all right. So I took the armload of blankets and the lamp, and I took them to the stable, made sure there was plenty of fresh, sweet hay for them. I lit their lamp from mine, and I bid them good night. The man told me he was very thankful for my kindness and my hospitality. The young woman appeared to try to smile in appreciation, but it was very clear that she was terribly uncomfortable. And so I went back to the inn and again crawled into my bed, knowing it would be far too short a time before the sun would rise. As I started to drift off into sleep, I heard the wind howling. Or was it the cry of a baby? And then all of a sudden there was banging at the gate again. And I sprang out of my bed, grabbed my lamp, and said, who is it who dares to come at such late an hour, long after we have locked the gate and put out the lights for the night? But before I even got to the gate, I knew who was waiting for me there. I could smell them. Shepherds. And when I arrived at the gate, I was about to tell them that they had chosen the wrong innkeeper to wake at such a late hour. But then they started speaking so excitedly. They spoke of watching their flocks on the hillside, and that there was an angel who spoke of the birth of a child, the Son of God, they say. And they also spoke of a heavenly chorus who told them of this great birth. And I told them, there was no child here. They just needed to leave before and my wife was at my side again. And she said, what about the couple that are staying in the stable? Didn't you say that she was heavy with child? And one of the shepherds said, yes, that's what we were told, that we would find the child in a stable, lying in a manger, wrapped in bands of cloth. And so I showed them where the stable was. And as they left, I turned and went back to bed. Again, knowing it would be a very short time before we would be having to get up and start the fires to begin cooking the morning meal for our guests. And it was true. I felt as if I had barely closed my eyes before my wife was telling me it was time to get up. And so I stumbled out, started making the fire. She started preparing the food. And as the people began to rouse and begin their day and make plans for continuing on their travels, I couldn't help but think about that couple down in the stable, what the shepherds had said about them. And so I took a loaf of fresh baked bread and a jar of water, and I went down to the stable, and they were already gone. There was no evidence that they'd even ever been there, except for the blankets we had given them that they had neatly folded, and there was the lamp on top. But then I looked in the manger, and I found this band of cloth. What did the shepherds say? That they would find a child wrapped in bands of cloth, lying in a manger, the Son of the Most High. I wonder. Well, there's no time to be talking and thinking about things such as this right now. There are people to be fed, and there are animals to be watered and to feed, and hopefully we will all sleep long and well tonight. Have you noticed how much brighter the stars were last night than they are tonight? So I gotta tell you, you realize the innkeeper isn't even in the scriptures. I read the one line from the Gospel of Luke. There was no place for them in the inn. The assumption is, if there was an inn, there was an innkeeper, right? I like to think that that's the kind of guy he was. Kind of rough around the edges, but he took care of people with the occasional nudges from his wife. I can identify with that. And so as we think about those events of some 2,000 years ago, I have my friends from Journeybound that will remind us about that night. So as we bring our time of worship to a close and prepare to continue in our journeys of faith away from this place, may the love of God, the peace of Christ, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit that binds us together as a family in faith, even when we are separated one from another, be with us this day and every day. Amen.